Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
again.
testing. Everybody's clear?
Oh,
Well,
it's
welcome to No
working.
Safe Space. Good. No glitches today, hopefully. I'm here with Jeffrey Williams and Akshay Sriram, and we're going to talk about analytic idealism. If you find yourself watching and you want to join us, shoot me an email. I'm happy to bring you into the stream. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. Maybe we should start out. Jeffrey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I thank you for having me back, Marty. I'm a simple semi-literate biker who lives under a bridge.
That's all there is to it. There's much to be said for simplicity. Akshay, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Well, I have no background in philosophy, but I am very extensively invested in idealism and Eastern philosophy, which has a lot of parallels and similarities. I'm a music composer by profession. I make, as I said, orchestral cinematic soundtracks.
Are you
So here
kidding
we
me?
are. Yeah,
That
that's
is
what I do.
fantastic. I used to be a professional musician before I was a semi-literate biker. Um,
Okay.
music is my passion, absolutely my passion. That's fantastic that you do that, Akshay.
Thank you.
Well,
Maybe after this, I'll send you my new
Please,
works. You can listen to them. You can
please do.
stream them. Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
yeah, I can see a collaboration in the making. Well, let's get down to analytic idealism, and I'll kind of let you guys fight amongst yourself because I'm not sure where
Great.
we're going to go with this. We're going to just freeform it as it were. Um, One of the questions that I've bumped up against repeatedly as I watch Kastrup's videos on analytic idealism is the idea that the physical world has no standalone existence. And I'm struggling to get my head around how that case is actually being soundly made. Um, do you want to take that on first, Jeffrey?
Well, then let me back up just a little bit. First of all,
Yeah, yeah.
I think these days he's calling it metaphysical idealism.
Oh,
It's
he's migrated.
I
Okay,
think that's what it is today. It's the same nonsense no matter what. Um,
okay.
well, let me go. I'm going to get to that, but I want to take kind of a circuitous route there.
Yeah, take your time. Go anywhere you want, sir. It's on you.
There is a video. It's moderated by the perpetually perplexed Robert Kuhn from the Closer to Truth series. And it has Bernardo Kastrup, the great Carlo Rovelli, and a philosopher who actually has spent her entire career in the studying and writing about the neurosciences named Patricia Churchland. And it was an interesting conversation. At the end of it, at the very end, Robert Kuhn asked Kastrup, is there anything that would cause you to admit an error, that there is no metaphysical idealism, that there is no consciousness as an ontological primitive? And he said, yes, there are two things. One of them is the inability to explain mind through material. He goes, materialism posits that the world is made of small entities. And it's impossible to get from small entities to mind. So that's one. And the other was that his claim that during a psychedelic experience, the activity of the brain decreases, which would seem to argue against a direct relationship between brain and consciousness. Okay, so those are his two criteria. Now, he has a long history of misrepresenting and distorting things. For example, in a confrontation with me, he said that I didn't know what I was talking about because I didn't understand transpersonal psychology, and there's just tons and tons and tons of literature on transpersonal psychology. Well, in fact, there is. There is quite a bit. The large majority of it debunking it. It's taught at no major universities. And the American Psychological Association declined to add it as a category because it was junk science. So he has a history of that kind of stuff. Another example is his misrepresentation of the Leggett inequalities, where he played a sophistic game with the terms real and non-real, trying to conflate non-real with non-physical, which is not what Leggett was getting at all. We can get into that later. But here, let's look at the two that he said. Let's start with his claim about decreased activity in the mind during a psychedelic experience, where your consciousness is exploding all over the place. Patricia Churchland first responded to that. Now you have to understand, she has a long and very admirable career studying and writing about the neurosciences. I doubt there's a study she is not aware of, and she has vast knowledge of the studies. And she corrected them right away and says, no, that is not what the studies say. The studies show increased activity in the brain, not decreased. You are factually wrong. Then Carlo Rovelli chimed in. And now Carlo Rovelli has also done a massive study on the literature of consciousness as background for some of his incredibly great books. And he said, I've gone over the literature, and it is almost unanimous that there is increased brain activity, not decreased. And so then Carlo started kind of sputtering and said, well, but the default mechanism, the default mode network decreases. Well, yeah, it does. That's absolutely true. Now, let me just read what Patricia Birchland said. She said, it's not that activity declined in the brain, but you saw a different kind of activity. Certain neurons, different coordinations of oscillations and spikes leading to the thalamus. Now, let's talk about the default mode network. One of the functions of that network is to put a rational narrative around sense data, make sense of the world. So if that, in a psychedelic experience where you're hallucinating and making no sense of anything, you wouldn't be too surprised to find the DMN is less active. But the rest of the brain is lighting up like a Christmas tree. He was factually wrong. So on one of his two criteria, he's wrong. He's just simply, he was misrepresenting once again what the studies show, and he was wrong. Now let's go. The other thing is, let's look at physics as positing the world as discrete entities. That hasn't been the case since the quantum revolution. Physics, contemporary quantum physics, posits a world of quantum fields, which are basically energy fields. The most elemental level of reality that we know of today is the energy of quantum fields. That's not discrete entities. Carlo Rovelli, I often refer to him, in his book, The Order of Time, wrote this on this very topic. He said, on closer inspection, in fact, even the things that are most thing-like are nothing more than long events. The hardest stone, in the light of what we have learned from chemistry, from physics, from mineralogy, from geology, from psychology, is in reality a complex vibration of quantum fields, a momentary interaction of forces, a process that for a brief moment manages to keep its shape, to hold itself in equilibrium before disintegrating again into dust, a brief chapter in the history of interactions between the elements of the planet, a trace of Neolithic humanity, a weapon used by a gang of kids, an example in a book about time, a metaphor for an ontology, a part of a segmentation of the world that depends more on how our bodies are structured to perceive than on the object of perception, and gradually an intricate knot in that cosmic game of mirrors that constitutes reality. The world is not so much made of stones as of fleeting sounds or of waves moving through the sea. That is how physics describes ultimate reality, not as individual entities, but as interplay of the energy of quantum field waves. And you can get from that to consciousness. As I've pointed out before and got blocked on Kastrup's Twitter for pointing this out, he himself acknowledged in an argument on Twitter that there is no consciousness in computers, and he said without ATP there simply is no consciousness. Absolutely right. ATP is the molecule that transfers energy throughout the brain. That means the consciousness in the brain emerges from energy. You take away the ATP, you turn off the supply of energy, consciousness dissolves into nothing. That makes energy, which quantum field theory tells us that makes energy the ontological primitive to the degree that we know it. I mean, there's no point speculating beyond that because we have no evidence beyond that, at least not yet. But as far as we know, energy is the ontological primitive. And from that energy, consciousness emerges. Take away the energy, consciousness disappears.
That makes solid sense. Do you have a response to that, Akshay?
Yeah, I have. First of all, I'll agree to something. In Analytical Idealism, Kastrup bluntly says that, I mean, it's an assumption Kastrup takes, which it's an assumption, but I agree. Dissociation is metabolism. So why it is metabolism, it's not specified. It's just told that certain, I hope you both are familiar with Analytical Idealism. Everything is mentation. And one specific category of mentation, which is metabolism, gives rise to different minds. That's his premise. But I'll address the things that you said before. The first reason why I am not going to take that even the fundamental quantum physics is going to give rise to consciousness, it is because Kant's phenomenon. What we are seeing, what we are observing with the five senses is the representation of something objectively out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. And so, and another thing that I would add, my personal view is, I don't think quantum mechanics proves idealism. Rather, I find quantum mechanics contradicting the current physicalist views, which is fine. Physicalism can evolve. It's a metaphysical position that constantly evolves, like any other metaphysical position. So I'm a person who do not advocates taking quantum physics to prove idealism, which is like a low blow, I feel. So I don't take that. So the reason I'm telling, this is our representation. If I don't have these two eyes and ears and all the senses I have is gustatory, the universe or the reality I'm perceiving is just going to be taste. And if you just have vision, the universe you're going to perceive is so visual. But my perspective is true. Your perspective is true. Frame of references, both are realities. So enabled with the five senses, we collectively, anthropomorphically see quantum mechanics, and we don't perceive it directly. Quantum mechanics is also in the abstraction, right? Like what we perceive directly is through the five senses: gustatory, somatosensory, olfactory, audio, and visual. And what quantum mechanics is, or any scientific theory, in my view, is the abstractions that we make about what we perceive. So what I'm going to say is none of it, or abstractions, or what we perceive, doesn't necessarily stand out there. What is out there, we will never know. So quantum mechanics giving rise to consciousness, or anything giving rise to consciousness, it's very vague, because we are fundamentally making a category mistake of emergence if you take it as strong emergence, it again goes to unproven physics, or nobody knows. If you had a solid theory for that, it would have worked. And the basic reason I'm taking consciousness fundamental ontology is because my truest assumptions are what I'm seeing is real. But the truest thing that I know is that I am perceiving. And there's some noise coming.
Yeah, that's my dog. He's
Okay.
mad because this is our usual playtime. Let me.
Okay.
I'll be
It's
right
fine.
back.
It's fine.
Give me 30
It's fine.
seconds.
It's fine.
I'm going to give him some food and see if that quiets him down a bit. Sometimes food will do it. I apologize. But you've made some interesting points. I want to get back to that.
Yeah, he'll address. But Akshay, I'm not sure I've got a total handle on where you're coming from with that. Are you suggesting to me that because you perceive it is your perception that is fundamental?
No, I'm coming to that. No, I'm not going to say it is fundamental, but what I'm saying is my starting point is my consciousness. All our knowledge, the epistemic limit is our consciousness. It is our perceptions. From here, we are making worldviews. And so I come from a Vedanta background. I'm not going to present the Vedanta arguments here. I think they're strong. If time permits and we are able to talk, we'll go into that if it's okay with you. But let me just take it from here. We have conscious experiences, and what we all agree is that there are other minds. I mean, it is completely unproven. Solipsism stays the most rational position, but we're all going to say there are other minds. You, Jeffrey, exist, I exist, Marty exists, and each of us have our own individual mentations. So it's like a pool of water, and we're both immersed in it. I have my own conscious field of experiences inside the ball. You have your own conscious field of experiences inside your ball. Mm-hmm. And this water is the objective reality that we are all sharing. So if I see anything I see or perceive is as it is outside, I'll be making a category mistake. I can't say that. It is completely noumenon. I cannot know that. And when when someone says that matter exists, or fundamentally this is how the objective reality exists, some degree agreement I can say is that, yes, that is how it would exist because the noumenon and my conscious mind is able to interact. And since it is interacting, it should have some commonality. It should have come from the same source. And I can definitely say all these physical experiences I can emulate in a dream. It's not impossible for the consciousness to generate physical sensual experiences from which we base there is a world outside. So we naturally know that we can generate physical experiences within our consciousness. So whatever is outside and whatever minds outside is there, all should have come from the same element because we are interacting with each other. If so, it is very natural for me to accept that the fundamental ontic entity in the universe is consciousness. I mean, physical stems from consciousness. Yeah.
Okay, I think Jeffrey's my argument. Ready to come back at that.
We, oddly enough, we probably have more in agreement than in disagreement, other than I don't see the implication of fundamental universal consciousness out of it. Let me clarify. First of all, I wasn't talking about quantum mechanics. I was talking about quantum field theory, which is a good deal more advanced from quantum mechanics. Now, let's talk about the noumena, because I write a lot about the intersection of philosophy, what's knowable, and quantum fields. This is my area. This is what I do. Even if I am a semi-literate, simple biker, I still find it fun. You are right that we only perceive representations in one mode of thought. I'm going to amend that in just a bit, but for the moment, let's assume solely representational thought. I'm sitting here in a photon-rich environment. It's impacting my retinas. and they're sending chemical electrical signals to a brain that has no window. All it has is information. It's all it's got. It's got electrical chemical information coming in, and it tries to make sense out of it. So it formulates a represented world. And it's sort of like producing a hologram from this information. Now, what I'm actually seeing isn't what I'm imagining I'm seeing is not what's out there in any stretch of the imagination. Modern physics has shown that space-time is not fundamental to reality, nor is reason. The fundamental reality is chaotic and irrational. But we have evolved an understanding that kind of puts together a rough sketch that makes it so that we can manipulate the environment and plan in a very, very limited scope. Now, I mean, if you look at the wall in front of you, it's empty space. That's all it is. It's empty space and an energy field. And one of the things that energy field does is bounce photons back at your retinas in a somewhat uniform array that gives us that causes our brain to represent it as a monochrome solid. It's not what it is. It's empty space.
You can take your time on that, Jeffrey. I didn't want to. I'm just putting it up there. You can keep going.
Hold on to that.
At your
I want to
leisure.
get to it, but I want to make my point first. But I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, the noumena is the quantum chaos that we can never know, because I mean, what science physics has now run headfirst into at the speed of light into the impenetrable wall of decoherence. And in doing so, just like in a particle accelerator, it's exploding off these little subparticles. And these subparticles are telling us, hey, we have no entry into that reality through our reason or through our concepts of space and time. That is the noumena. The noumena is whatever that is that exists before decoherence. Consciousness is sort of an entanglement with that world that is, consciousness is a series of reductions. It starts with looking at consciousness comes.
Can I just ask something? Like,
yeah.
Are you referring to our higher level cognition or consciousness in general?
I'm talking about representational thought.
Our anthropomorphic consciousness.
I'm sorry?
Consciousness in the anthropomorphic sense, like our mind, human mind.
Yes, exactly. I'm talking about our minds, okay? We come up against a quantum world of all possibilities in superposition and chaotic entanglements that exist as they are. We cannot understand that. We are the very, very first reduction in our consciousness is wave collapse, taking one of the possibilities in superposition and admitting that into our conscious represented world. And as we go through, that creates a timeline. Max Tegmark and another physicist I refer to all the time, Wojciech Zurek, point out that the only thing we know of that reduces entropy, that lowers entropy, is our consciousness. It takes a total entropy environment, reduces it to decoherence, and that starts a timeline, because that representation is going to itself increase in entropy. That gives us the timeline. Now, as that goes on, what can be allowed to decohere and appear into our world, those possibilities lessen and lessen because they can't contradict what's already happened in the timeline. I can't go visit my dead mother in Paris tomorrow. That's one of the possibilities that exists in coherence that doesn't exist in our timeline. So what happens is entropy gets greater and greater, the possibilities get less and less, and it's just like cosmic inbreeding, the system breaks down. And every single rational system that man has ever devised has broken down. It's inevitable. Now, but that is the noumena. Now, at bottom, I'm sorry, go ahead. You had a question?
Yeah, I mean, like, what I feel here is like, when you told that, you're telling that the quantum randomness or the chaos, that is what the noumenon is having, right?
Yes, exactly. Because, and the reason I say that, we can say nothing positive about the noumena. We have nothing we can say positive about it. We only know that it is impenetrable through our modes of cognition, our evolved modes of cognition, which work in a very, very tiny sphere of reality, but can absolutely can never penetrate in a positive way what's in the noumena. We can only say what it isn't. We know some things it's not. It's not rational. It's not local. It does not have space-time. We know those. And the reason it doesn't is
I have an objection there, because see, I mean, what I think, if it is truly noumenon, we cannot even say what we are saying right now, because to me, what I understand here is we perceive sensual qualia. I mean, that is all we have, and we are assuming a noumenon out there. Let's just say it is there. And inside this, we are studying patterns. That is science. Like Andre Celinde told this. Yeah. So here, see, if you put let's take the double slit experiment, the classic one. When you try to look at the electron as a particle, when you don't try to look at it, it's not a particle, and you get the interference pattern, and it's a mystery. Right. So it is at the base. Yeah, it is at the basic atomic level, but even that is in our perceptions. We cannot.
No question. We're saying the same thing in a way. What we are seeing when we do a double slit experiment is what happens after decoherence. We have no insight into what happens prior to decoherence, other than our modes of cognition can't penetrate it. That's all we know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even that, whatever is happening, this anomaly or mystery in our field of perception is still inside our field of perception. We cannot take it outside. For reasons I'm telling is like Kant, in his Transcendental Idealism, would say that space-time is inside our representation.
Right, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, so if we are taking anything outside, if we are taking randomness outside, even randomness is a temporal thing, right? I mean, without time, there's no randomness.
No, again, we're in agreement again to a large degree. And if you had read any of the stuff I've written on this, I hit this a lot. We cannot, because of we have cognitive
limitations.
We have conditions of cognition, and we cannot get outside them. So that if we're trying to talk about a lack of space-time, we can't say what that is. All we can do is put it in spatial temporal terms. We have no other way to do that. But we know that whatever those terms are, they don't describe fundamental reality. We can't say what it is. All we can say about it is negating our own. That's all we can do. I have nothing positive to describe quantum reality or fundamental reality. I cannot do it. Nobody can do it.
But would you say that
20 years later, we still don't have an interpretation of quantum mechanics, and we never will.
No, but I'm asking, like, what I'm trying to make a point here is, like, quantum mechanics, this is what I'm telling. Okay, see, I have my five senses, and this is the representation I am seeing.
Mhm.
And inside this representation, the anomaly of quantum mechanics exists. It's true. It is very true. Anthropomorphically, everyone has it. We cannot even necessarily say that these are the five senses that any conscious being would have, right?
No,
Technically,
of course not. Of
yeah,
course not.
yeah. And so just imagine a hypothetical alien with completely five different senses, and it is going to model reality in a completely different way. We
No
have no
question.
idea. Like
That's right.
Nagel said,
That's right.
we can never get into the consciousness of a bat. We can never get into the consciousness of this being.
Right.
So why would we even assume quantum anomalies would be there in that being's representation? It need not be, right?
I didn't understand that. Try that
Okay.
last part again.
Yeah. Inside, since we are equipped this five senses of ours, somatosensory, gustatory, audio and visual, when we are peeking into this representation more with more resolution, with more instruments, we find quantum anomalies.
Right.
This is in our representation. This need not be in the representation of this hypothetical being, right?
No, it need not.
So I'm telling, the quantum anomalies we see most likely could be exclusively anthropomorphic. Even that will not stretch into the reality. So there's, I mean,
we're saying the same thing on that. Everything we represent is simply a product, an artifact of our human conditions of cognition. It's all that is, but it's not reality at all. It's determined by things that are outside. I want to get back to the part about.
Can we say that? I mean,
yes.
Can we even make an? Okay.
First of all, have you read Shakespeare?
No, I've seen Juliet and Romeo on TV, maybe. But
okay, because I mean, most of us in
I know Merchant of the Venice. That's it.
Okay. Can you create a Shakespearean poem? Will your mind produce a Shakespearean poem?
I mean, with Chat GPT, I can, but not alone.
No, your mind. Can you produce that in your mind?
Without prior knowledge of Shakespeare?
Well, where would you get the knowledge if all you know is your consciousness?
I can argue there, but I mean, let's go with you. I mean, right now, I wouldn't be able to write any Shakespeare poem without getting exposed to Shakespeare.
That's exactly right, which implies that consciousness isn't what you know. Consciousness is what you know things through. First of all, I think it's kind of naive to think we know consciousness. We don't. We haven't a clue what consciousness is. But we do.
Okay, let me redefine what I think. Again, as usual in all these debates, consciousness gets misrepresented. I'll tell you my view, okay? Because this is gonna be totally different. Okay. Since I come from an Eastern philosophy background, consciousness, or we say Brahman, anything, you can name it anything. The name is irrelevant. You can't name it. Mind is actually material in nature. I mean, it's not the material that you interact physically, but it's also material. And physical matter.
Can I just stop you right there? Because again, we're kind of in agreement. To me, mind is physical. It's energy. It's physical. It's not material.
I wouldn't say energy, but I would say it's of the same category. Like both the mind and the physical objects that it is perceiving, it is both material in nature, but it could be different categories. Like I'm not say it is energy. I'll say it's energy and matter. So see, energy and matter can basically interact with each other because they come from the same true form, whatever that is. We don't know. So consciousness to me is what gives rise to both mind and the physical.
Okay, let me just, I need to go back to the energy and matter part, because what we do know from observations in quantum physics is that matter emerges from energy. Specifically, it's the interaction of the Higgs boson or the Higgs field with certain other fields produces matter. Without that interaction of those two types of energy, there is no matter. That's why energy is fundamental. And we have plenty of energy that's not matter. We don't have any matter that doesn't emerge from the interaction of the Higgs field. It's basic physics today.
Higgs field gives mass to every particle we know, except for electrons, I guess. I mean, even electrons, maybe.
No.
I'm not strong here.
Yeah, the only things that don't have any mass at all are photons and neutrinos.
Neutrinos, yeah. I have no contradiction here. In fact, I think, as you said, we have a lot of things in common.
Much.
Yeah, why I'm taking idealism is because I'm gonna tell some Vedanta. I hope I can shorten it and tell you. See,
I'm not in a hurry.
Okay, yeah. So if you have read Mandukya Karika, V. Subramania, he gives a forward then. The basic difference, or why Eastern and Western philosophy has a fundamental difference, why Eastern is idealistic in nature and Western is more materialistic in nature, is because Jung also said this. Dreams are not being considered for what they are actually. I mean, the potentiality is what dreams hold. So I'll give you an example from Ashtavakra Gita. I'm just going to say, just a hypothetical example. You're Jeffrey. Right now, you're Jeffrey. You have your own ego. Let's just say you have memory, which will have your temperaments, gender identity, social identity, sexual identity, everything. And you have objectives. Like right now, you're debating with me. This is more like a discussion, actually. We're discussing. And after that, maybe you got to play with your dog. And if you think about yesterday, you know where you came from. And if you think about 50 years back, you know what you were doing. Everything is in your memory. Now consider this. You're Sophia. Sophia is a lesbian lawyer in Washington. She's going in a car. You're driving the car. Sophia, you're Sophia. You're driving the car. When you're driving the car, you have two kids in the back, Sheldon and Cooper. And you're talking to your partner like, I'm in a hurry. I need to go to the court. I need to present these cases. You need to pick up Sheldon and Cooper. You have a coffee mug in front of you. And when you break, the coffee spills on your foot and you feel the heat, and that's very real. And you tell Sheldon and Cooper are afraid, and you're like, Sheldon, don't be afraid. Take care of your brother and stuff. You know them. You know them. You actually know them. Because you know them like you know your son or anyone else. That's what you're experiencing. And suddenly you're back to Jeffrey. So from this, what Vedanta would take is what we just normally we just rub it off as, oh, what a crazy dream. What we can infer from this is we are completely defined by our mind, and our mind is a very transient object. It has no permanence. It is constantly changing. When you compare, this is called upamana. I mean, Eastern epistemology has a lot of cool stuff like deduction, equivalent to that. So upamana is like comparing these two situations, and we're going to compare dream, Sophia and Jeffrey. So your social identity, your gender identity, even that changed in the dream. Even that is not permanent. So Sophia is a lesbian, your sexuality changed. And she knows a lot of different people during the dream that you never even knew. But now you know a lot of people that Sophia doesn't even know. So what is the commonality in between Sophia and Jeffrey? The commonality is you are observing. You are neither Jeffrey, you're neither Sophia. You are observing. You are the observer. So from these two premises, what you can get right now is that the mind is constantly changing. And if you tell that you are the mind, you are always changing. But is it so? We have another consciousness state called sleep. And in sleep, I mean, this is something you can argue against, but any physicalist or idealist would need to take this sleep like this. Sleep is something that we experience, but there's no mind. So from the first two cases, we can deduce that mind is transient. And in Vedanta, you'd say it's not just the mind. The physical experiences coming into the mind through the senses. There's an external world giving experience to the mind, and then there is internal mentations in the mind. These together, it's called Jagat, or we can just say reality. We perceive a reality that is transient. And in sleep, we perceive nothing. There's no mind, there's no
Right.
physical senses. So from these three cases, what we can say is in the dream, in the sleep, in the current wakeful state, there is something common. You're perceiving. Even sleep, you're perceiving. Even though you're not experiencing anything, you're experiencing yourself. So from this, we posit something called the observer. You can call it Brahman or anything. This is what I would say is consciousness. It is giving rise to verily the mind and whatever it is observing. And why I'm not favoring physicalism is because I mean here from these three consciousness states we have two deductions. Two deductions without any assumptions would be, in Vedanta you'd say Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, which would mean that observer constancy of the observer is the constant. It never changed. In all three consciousness states, the observer never changed. And Jagat is what it is perceiving, the observations. Observer constancy and observation transience. That is what we are deducing. And from here, when you're building, see, now we don't have any metaphysical worldviews. What we have is just a deduction, but we need a worldview for working. So we're just going to assume there is an objective reality outside, apart from your mind. The moment you make that assumption, dream and sleep becomes internal states, right? Like
Okay.
observations are constant, and but the observer is a constant, but we made the observations constant too. While we verily know it is not so, but for any metaphysical view, we need to take that. So now that you have made the objective reality truth, we go to the classic question of whether other minds exist. We're just gonna say yes, we don't know. I mean, you don't know right now in physicalism as well, but we just take yes. For any worldview, we need that. So there exist minds, there is a physical world, and there's the observer. So this is the question where it boils down. Does the physical world give rise to the observer? I mean, if you take the third assumption too, we are essentially negating the only true statement we have left with, the observer constancy. So when you negate that too, it's all assumptions, and it's less parsimonious because we're taking more assumption. So this is how I come to idealism. Like, no, I'm not going to take physical as the ontic fundamental. It is the observer or consciousness. This is what I'm calling consciousness, is the ontic fundamental. And from the platform of consciousness, multiple minds are arising and an objective reality with which they can interact. Kastrup's dream arguments, where the dissociative identity disorder patients, they have multiple alters and they dream of a common shared reality and are experiencing the reality like we are experiencing it right now, would make it very natural to accept that. So this is why I'm favoring idealism.
No,
and the conscious.
I understand that argument.
Hmm.
And first of all, I'm in almost total agreement with everything you said about consciousness until you made the metaphysical jump, for which I see no grounds. I would also, I mean, yes, the mind is changing all the time. It's an event. It's not a thing. It's an event. And the mind is changing all the time. And with that, so is the observer. I'm a very different observer today than I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same.
Let's just call that the mind. The observer, I mean, like in the premise I said, the observer is consciousness.
Now,
To
me, a physical explanation seems far more likely, because everything you described was a function of a particular self-organization of energy in an individual. There is absolutely no reason to project that out to fundamental reality itself. What you've described are instances of events, of consciousness events that are in people. We never ever can, I mean, we can measure consciousness in animals, in people. We have never measured consciousness in anything outside of living organisms, which we know, I mean, from a physicalist perspective, a living organism is a self-organization of energy, a very complex self-organization of energy, as everything else in the world is. And that organization, as every other organization, increases in entropy until it collapses and we die. There's no reason to think of that as existing outside of the organisms. That's a metaphysical leap that we aren't really compelled to make. Let me quote something that Rovelli said in response to that same sort of thing. Kastrup had said there's no boundary between consciousness and the rest of nature, so we have to assume that nature is conscious, even though there's literally no evidence to support that. And Rovelli said, I agree, there is no boundary between consciousness and the rest of nature, but there's no boundary between a bicycle and the rest of nature, and that doesn't mean that everything is bicyclist. Just because it's fundamental to us doesn't mean it's fundamental to reality.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, can we put that? But we lost that guy's question. Can you? Yeah. Before we get any further, let me answer this. If something such as energy has consciousness in potential, shouldn't we consider consciousness as fundamental, at least in potential? And no, I see no reason to do that. Everything that exists,
followed that up.
Everything that exists exists in superposition beyond that impermeable wall of decoherence. The only things that come through are the things that are possible in our timeline, but there is absolutely no reason to think that consciousness, which only exists with energy, and also in the vast majority of energy that we are aware of in this cosmos, has no consciousness at all. There's no reason to conclude that the noumena is itself conscious. There's no reason to think that. It's a metaphysical leap that we need not make, and it would sort of defy what little we do know.
Well, let me
I
ask
mean,
you
what
both
if
maybe.
the brain is a visible side of a way in which the noumena organized itself, leading to the actualization of consciousness that was already there as a potential? I agree it was there as a potential. That's true. But it doesn't mean that all of noumena is conscious. It seems not to be.
Well,
Jeffrey,
if a
wouldn't
layman
that
can just
okay.
interject something here, just as a layman, you guys are talking smart, but I'm not understanding the jump to take consciousness outside of ourselves. I don't want to use the term, but I don't have a better one, anthropomorphizing the universe, and to say
I agree with that
is
exactly.
consciousness.
That's my point. I would.
It is not anthropomorphic. I mean, like, if you're taking Kastrup's view, it is not anthropomorphic. But I have a question to Jeffrey. See, if you say that consciousness or qualias are an emergent property of energy, and you made another statement like, apart from humans, animals, we don't see consciousness elsewhere, then that would mean
plants. I don't know. I said
fine. Yeah, if you say that, then you're essentially creating a threshold. Like, like photoelectric effect, you need certain a photon of certain energy to fall on the electron for the emission to start.
Right.
So how can you make a threshold? Like, wouldn't that eventually lead to panpsychism? If you say it like this, the premise goes to panpsychism, I feel.
It would lead to the opposite of panpsychism. Because the threshold isn't something I create, it's something we observe. We observe consciousness, we measure it. We physically measure the energy of consciousness in animals, in ourselves. We do that through fMRIs. We do it through brainwave scans. We measure consciousness. We have never.
But are we measuring consciousness? I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, you could essentially argue that you're a philosophical. If you're Dennett, and Dennett would say he's a philosophical zombie. fMRIs don't mean anything to Dennett, right?
Yeah, but
For
I'm
an
not
illusion.
that, and I pretty much reject everything Dennett says. I'm not an analytical philosopher by any
No, I was
stretch of the
making the
imagination.
point, like, even if you measure my fMRI, it is my, like, what? How do you say I'm conscious? It is because you are having your own subjective experiences, and I'm anatomically similar to you. And when I make the same claim, I mean, although you can tell
But
all my activities.
Here's how you can tell. First of all, if somebody's unconscious, there's a specific decrease in brain activity. If you're conscious of a musical, of something musical, certain areas of your brain light up. If you're sound in a deep sleep, your fMRI is going to look different. Your brain waves are going to look different. We can match certain energetic activities with certain known states of consciousness. That would be a pretty good indication we're measuring consciousness. And in a dead person, all those measurements go away.
True. I agree to everything that you said. You said pretty good. That is because it goes back to problem of many minds, right? I mean, you can never tangibly experience the subjective experience of another conscious being, right? I mean, it is an assumption you're giving as granted. Like, I am anatomically similar to you. I am making sounds like you. I'm behaving like you. Hence, you take an assumption that I also have subjective experiences, right? I mean, that's basically what we can do.
It's not a matter of do we both have the same sensation of red. That's not it.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't have to have the same sensation.
It's something conscious or not, and you can tell. You can tell if something.
No. See, yes, I get what you mean. This is also what I am doing. But can we really tell other than our subjective experiences? It is based on the assumption, right?
It's more than subjective experiences. It's
yes. I mean, like, I'm not gonna say
we don't know consciousness, and we know things through consciousness. Things on the outside world impinge on our senses. Our senses take that and create, a conscious representation. So yes, we can know certain things. We can know that there are sleep cycles, and they
no, Jeffrey, that's not what I'm implying. Like, you have subjective experiences, right? Like qualia, basically qualia, and it is very rational of you to say that I have qualia because I'm behaving very much like you. That is the only thing that we can use to say that I have a qualia, right?
No, we can also measure our brain activities when
we can measure our brain activity.
Qualia,
true.
And the brain activity is going to be similar.
See, this is, I mean, I don't know, I think we are.
Can I respond just for a second? We got questions coming in. We probably should respond to them. I'm measuring brain activity, not consciousness. Exactly right. And the consciousness is almost 100% correlated to that brain activity.
But not causation.
What?
I mean, it is correlation doesn't imply causation, right?
But we know that it's
but
there.
If you assume so, I'm
not looking for causation. I'm looking for presence of.
That is a very good indicator for consciousness. I mean, I would say that.
And I'm not worried about the causation. Causation, I'm not going into.
Okay, fine.
Once again, the fundamental concepts mismatch. Do things have consciousness, or does consciousness have things? I would say neither one. I would say consciousness doesn't have things. Consciousness is our conduit to external information. Things is a whole different. I could do a whole cast on things. It's an interesting thing in itself, but I wouldn't say that things have consciousness or consciousness has things. Things arise through consciousness.
Okay, Jeffrey, the point you make, like, what I understand is basically energy at a certain threshold is causing consciousness, is causing subjective experiences, right?
I'm not saying cause. I'm saying it enables
It is. It
yeah,
enables.
let's say it is it's not its cause. It is.
It is it. So it is essentially functionalism, right? I mean,
I wouldn't say that.
either it's identity or functionalism or weak emergence, and I'm pretty sure you're not taking strong emergence. Which category does it fall to?
In fact, I don't think of it in those categories. I think of it more broadly.
Fine.
As
Fine.
it doesn't exist. It does not exist until the energy.
So let me rephrase. In my brain,
that we can measure.
Okay, in my brain, when some neurons fire, like excite, and the electric field changes, and this physical activity occurs in this temporal graph, then I have a subjective experience. That activity itself is the subjective experience. That is your theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna say it's wrong. Even if I go by that theory, I think it has some implications to panpsychism, because essentially the brain is also just another collection of matter. Like it is not. I mean, it's made of carbon.
Not fundamentally, it isn't. Fundamentally, it's a self-organization of energy.
Fine. True.
As Rovelli described it. I mean, that is the consensus of the most modern consensus in physics.
Fine. No, again, I can take that, but are we gonna say that any self-automating system is conscious?
No, absolutely. Because only specific ones can be.
I mean,
not all of them are hard. Not all of them are liquid. Not all of them reflect or have photons bouncing off of them. They're all because one self-organization of energy
it has to be brain.
Emerging it from it doesn't mean all self.
It has to be brain. Like you're saying, it has to be brain. It has to be something with a neuronal structure, according to you.
I don't even know that that's true. I think that there's consciousness. I suspect, I have a theory that our consciousness originally evolved way back to the stimulus response events in single-celled animals. So I don't think. I think it's. I think it predates neurons.
Fine. Okay, it's fine. See, the problem I'm seeing is, let's compare something. Let's take surface tension. For example, surface tension, it doesn't occur between two atoms. There's no surface tension between two atoms. Two molecules of water. What we have is essentially hydrogen bond. But when we have a lot of water molecules together, surface tension is a measurable quantity, and it has units, and we can derive it, and we can say from what fundamental property it came from. If you are associating consciousness in that matter, I mean, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. But it is essentially would be weak emergence, and it would have to go back to some fundamental quantity that is measurable and coming. And if so, if my brain is having consciousness, that means the constituent particles.
It's prior to particles. Particles are.
It's prior to particles. Okay.
It's energy.
Oh, you're going back to quantum fields. Okay.
Yes, that is what underlies everything in the universe.
That everything is consciousness, right?
No, absolutely not. Only certain specific energy organizations, and those don't exist elementally or fundamentally. Those only come about under certain circumstances of organization. There's no way from that.
Fine. Okay, let's take that. But what is your take on the measurement problem? What causes the collapse of the superposition?
I believe it's epistemic. As I said before, it's the first reduction in a whole chain of reductions of consciousness.
But see, the problem is, if everything is fundamentally in superposition, nothing can collapse, right? Unless observed.
It doesn't collapse in reality. In reality, it does not collapse. We don't change that fundamental decoherence reality in any way at all. It isn't changeable. There's no causality at that level. What changes is our perceptions in our timeline. But we don't fundamentally change the world. We don't
So are we?
We don't turn a wave into a proton. I mean,
So are we taking B theory of time? Like everything is in superposition at all times, and we are just perceiving through each outcome. And the modal tree, it's like our consciousness is passing through the modal tree. Is it so?
You fell into having to define the noumena temporally.
No, it's okay. Like I'm just trying to understand how this is going.
We all are, but we can't, because we cannot conceive of the absence of time. We can only think of it as the lack of time, but we cannot conceive of a reality where the concept of time isn't even possible. So you said it all exists simultaneously.
No, I'm not saying. I'm asking you. Like, is it how you're conceiving? Like,
No.
Since you told that no superposition is essentially being collapsed. That means
Right.
all superposition is simultaneously existing, right?
Simultaneous is a temporal word. We can't even talk about it.
Yeah, true. So
Can't
all
talk about
superposition is in existence.
Yes.
Okay.
All
So
superposition is in existence.
So we are experiencing time, though. So that would mean what would that mean then?
Only through reduction, and only through the lowering of entropy, which is a mental trick.
See, again, the
Remember
thing is, how can you lower entropy when everything is in superposition?
The only thing in the world that lowers entropy
is consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually lower entropy. It reduces. Rovelli, I don't know if you've read Rovelli, but he's got this concept called blurring, and I think it's brilliant. What consciousness does is blur out 99.9% of reality, focuses on a few chosen events, and this has got reminiscence of Eugene Wigner.
Attention schema. I mean, it sounds more like attention schema. Is it like attention schema, Michael Graziano's theory?
Well, that would be a real superficial rendering of something much, much deeper.
Okay.
But, and it's only through that blurring that we get the sensation of time. And what happens in that blurring is we reduce the universe of almost infinite possibilities and superpositions and relationships to just a few that look like a subset to us. And what that subset is
connectable subset. Subset that are in connection with each other.
Yes, exactly right. They're entangled. They have relationships, and we're just looking at a few of them, and that looks like a system to us. Now, if we were to expand our frame of reference from that tiny little bit of the universe, that apparent subsystem would very quickly recede back into the chaos of quantum foam. So it's a mind trick.
Can you repeat?
Okay. By blurring, we blur out in almost the entire universe except for a few small related events, and we see that as a world, as a subsystem. Now, that was
how do we do that?
Reduction, mental reduction.
No. See, if an electron is in superposition, it's like it is equivalent to the phenomenon. We don't know what that state is. Like
exactly right. But we pick one of them. One of them is able to get through to us. And
how?
That's somewhat of a mystery, but Wojciech Zurek has made some real progress on that question, where he shows what can possibly enter into our represented universe and what can't.
It can
slide through. It has to do with density matrices, and it's more than I can go into right here. But
I understand. But my fundamental question is, like, for something to slide in, this has to be already there, right?
Yes, it's already there.
What is already there? We are already there.
No, well, what's sliding in is
Hmm.
a tiny piece of a superimposed event. One of the possible outcomes can slide into our timeline.
Okay, so we are the temporal beings. Consciousness is the
Yes,
temporal thing.
exactly.
Okay.
Even that, I mean, we are the beings that represent relationships temporally. It does,
So I think this is very similar to B theory, where you take the arrow of time and make time an illusion and give the arrow to consciousness. We are moving forward
exactly
through the
right.
superposition
Yes,
chain.
yes. That's
Okay,
right. I
okay.
mean, you can shorten it to that.
I mean, with the given assumption, I'm not saying this is wrong. It's logically consistent. I don't have a problem with that. But the reason why I wouldn't take it is because on the bottom of argument I'm framing, right? I was framing, like, yeah. In that, see, that is a pre-metaphysical argument. Like, it never went to idealism or physicalism. We were just deducing stuff and taking one assumption at a time. So you are I mean, if you leave all metaphysical positions and like
Yes.
you don't have any metaphysical positions, no assumptions, essentially you agree to the fact that mind is transient, right?
Yes.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
the observer.
And first of all, I mean, if I hadn't made it clear before, I reject metaphysics. My whole program is to think non-metaphysically.
Oh, okay.
I cannot ground metaphysics in anything. Everything about it is ungrounded, so I don't consider it.
That's the fun part, right? It's ungrounded. We can make theories all day.
Well, yeah, in metaphysics, I can shift, shift all kinds of things and come up with explanations. The problem is they're meaningless. So I reject.
No, see, yeah, but see, I think there is an underlying. But you're a physicalist, right?
Yes, I'm a physicalist.
Yeah. So
But
here's
not a productive physicalist. We need to be careful. I'm not a science. I'm not scientific. I am not reductionist. I'm a non-reduction. I mean, if you have to put a label on it, I'm a non-reductive physicalist. But I'm more a thinker of being in the Heideggerian tradition.
I don't know that tradition, but okay. What essentially is my view is, okay, I am gonna say I come from a Vedanta Advaita background, so neither idealism or physicalism is true. But when we are comparing, see, both physicalism and idealism takes assumptions, and when we are comparing idealism and physicalism, idealism is more parsimonious. So this is what I was building into. So the basic premise is like what we you're okay with the premise, right? Observer constancy and observation transience.
I don't agree with observer constants. No.
I mean, the observer is not the mind. Again, that's what I'm telling. When you see Jeffrey and when you see Sophia, you are seeing it. It's not Jeffrey. It's not Sophia. You are experiencing it. The point of view is not changing, right? The point of view is the observer.
My point of view changes constantly. I don't.
Yeah, true.
Mind is constantly changing. Consciousness is constantly changing.
True.
It's
No. Let me make a demarcation. No,
I'm
don't
not the same
take
person I was 10 years ago. I'm a different person.
Yeah, accept it. I'm asking you to not take any definitions from any metaphysical positions. I'm not going to define what dream is. I'm not going to define what weak is from any metaphysical position. I'm just going to build it from the bottom up. Can we go there?
Let's build from the bottom up. That's fine.
Okay, so essentially as conscious beings, we have dreams, wakefulness, and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're Jeffrey, so I'm going to frame these things. What you have is, if you take Vedanta, it will go like this somewhat. There's a mind, which has subcategories like Chitta, Buddhi, and Ahankara. Let's just collectively call it mind. And then there are the five senses, and then there's an external world. This is what you're experiencing right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I would say there's a rather intimate, almost indivisible relation between the senses and mind. I think mind is sensation.
Mind is fine. It's cool. I mean, we can take any model. It doesn't matter. It's just for the sake of communication. We are just defining it. And what you told is right. You can really cut senses from the mind. I mean, yeah. So essentially what this mind holds is a set of your identities and memory, like gender identity, social identity, what makes Jeffrey, and the sensory experiences coming into the mind through a physical world outside, which is giving very definite physical experiences, like the coat you're wearing, the sweater you're wearing, the dog sound you can hear, everything is coming from outside. This entire set of mind and the physical world will be calling reality.
I wouldn't.
I mean, just for the definition.
Oh, okay.
We need, yeah, from the bottom up building. So when you're Sophia in the other example, your entire mind changed, right?
No, I don't think so. I think I was imagining Sophia from the from my own perspective.
Wait. You can't draw in any conclusions from physicalism or idealism here. I would agree to you because your brain is modeling that, but you can't even bring brain here because essentially that is like coming back from physicalism.
I'm talking about mind. I'm talking about consciousness. And
okay.
If I'm dreaming of Sophia, I am constructing from my experience of lesbian female attorneys. It's still.
It doesn't matter. True. Okay, it doesn't matter because during the dream, when you are Sophia, Jeffrey is non-existent.
No, I
right?
don't agree with that at all. No.
No. When you're Sophia, you have no memory of Jeffrey. Do you have memory of Jeffrey? No.
I don't believe that for a second. I am Jeffrey pretending to be Sophia.
Yeah, even the absence of the memory of being Jeffrey, it's still Jeffrey that's generating that.
No, yeah, that's what I'm coming to. See, when you're experiencing Sophia, your gender identity changed, your social identity changed, whatever you're tying to Jeffrey, even your name has changed. There's no Jeffrey there. There's the experiencer there.
No,
you observe Jeffrey,
on
you
what
observe
basis,
Sophia.
On what basis are you assigning Sophia any standalone existence?
I'm not assuming any standalone existence. I am telling Jeffrey and Sophia are equivalent.
Are what?
Are equivalent. During the time of experiencing, Jeffrey and Sophia are what the reality is. Sophie's mind and the okay. Let's talk about that.
Dreams aren't exactly like hallucinations. You usually have a sense that it's a dream. And there's a sense that what I'm doing as Jeffrey is creating a character. But I didn't disappear. I'm creating this character.
Yeah, see, Jeffrey, I'm not telling you disappear. Don't go into that assumption. I'm telling during the dream, when you're Sophia, you have no memory of Jeffrey or Jeffrey's life.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't believe it's the case.
You're saying such dreams cannot exist.
I've never.
Is that so? No, personally, you might not have had one, but such radical dreams are possible where you can change gender.
Are they possible or?
They are possible. You can change gender in your dreams.
Well, yeah, you can change gender in your dreams.
Isn't that just a subjective experience? How does it demonstrate?
I still know I'm dreaming, and this is something I'm making up.
No. That would be a lucid dream.
That's just how I dream because I always know.
No, okay. So there are categories of dreams. I mean, when you go into Jung studies,
but if you look at where this is originating, there is no Sophia. There isn't one.
There's no Sophia. There's no Sophia.
Jeffrey having an experience.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming. See, okay. First of all, I mean, if you have not had a dream like that, I mean, it would be hard to experience that. But
I've never had a dream like that.
I do have dreams where I'm completely a different person, but those dreams are possible. That's what I'm coming. Let's say there are dreams like that.
Let's go.
They're possible. Yeah. When these dreams are possible, when you're experiencing this point of view as Sophia, there's no memory of Jeffrey. There's no memory of Jeffrey's life. There is memory of Sophia and her life, her objectives. Like she has to go to court. That's her objective right now. And Sophie's children are behind the car. She knows them.
Yeah, I remember the story.
And Yeah, and the coffee falls. It's all very real. So the physical experience is being relayed by a world outside, supposedly for Sophie, is all very real. It's not. I mean, she doesn't know it's unreal, right? During the point
No,
of experiencing,
she doesn't even exist. She doesn't
that is
exist.
okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you, if such dreams are possible, can you be certain that Jeffrey is not a dream?
Nobody can be certain of that.
Yeah, exactly. That same uncertainty entails every dream.
But let's go back to the Shakespeare. Let's go back to the Shakespeare. I
Okay.
cannot. I've read all of Shakespeare. I'm very conversant in Shakespeare. I didn't make Shakespeare up. If you asked me to write a Shakespearean sonnet, I wouldn't be able to do it. I could not write a Shakespeare tragedy. I can't do it. So it's not a dream. I'm aware of all kinds of things that I could not have invented.
Okay, that essentially doesn't negate that this couldn't be a dream. See, what I'm telling is, from the current perspective, Sophie is a dream. That is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
For all of us, Sophie is a dream. And when you are Sophie, something else could be a dream. I'm telling you, can never discern a dream from reality. Such cases are possible.
No, I don't. I don't agree with that at all.
I do it every time I wake up.
Yeah, I do every time I wake up. Also,
yeah. See, that's where I'm coming.
And there are all kinds of timeline inconsistencies that arise. It's very easy to tell if you're dreaming.
Yeah, that's because you're thinking about your subjective dreams. I was talking about this radically different dream. It is possible. Such dreams are possible.
Yeah, but that even you don't really believe that fundamentally, or you wouldn't be working with a computer and talking to me, right?
No.
Nobody.
See, I'm not. That is not what the argument is. What it tells us is that we, from our point of view, we are seeing things, and everything that we are seeing is transient. It need not be permanent. That is what dreams.
Permanent. I'm agreeing with all of that. It's the conclusion from it that I can't follow you with. You make a metaphysical leap that we don't have to make.
No, I'm not taking a metaphysical leap. I'm not taking a metaphysical leap.
Well,
this is a deduction I'm making.
But I think then you're misstating the experience of a dream. The Sophie never exists. If you think that, then you're temporarily delusional, just like if you're
exactly.
But that we can distinguish that from connection to reality. That we can do. Right now
we can do. Yeah. And same way, if Jeffrey was a dream and Sophie was real, Sophie could have done the same. It implies to the current situation.
Yeah, but except there's no.
There is no Sophie. Yes, I understand. There is no Sophie.
It's a metaphysical musing that might be kind of fun, but it has absolutely no grounding.
What it essentially goes to. I mean,
Akshay, you're putting something forward, and I see the model you're building, but you're just saying, well, I've had this experience, so it's real. And that
it's
means
not,
but I can't.
No. It's not my experience.
From that to saying we can't tell anything is real, that doesn't work.
No, I'm not coming to see. What I'm coming to is all the things that we say are real are based on assumptions. That we all agree, right? We agree. Yeah, Descartes' skepticism.
I would say it's a good deal more complicated than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you can't get through.
Other than cogito ergo sum, can we be sure of anything? No, we are taking assumptions every second, right?
Yeah. Well, you can't get through the day without a few assumptions. But there's
it's not few. It's not few.
But they're not. But here's the difference: is they're grounded assumptions. Metaphysics.
They're not grounded.
They are grounded. Metaphysics is ungrounded assumptions. Lack of metaphysics has assumptions that are grounded in physicality, and that's
which is grounded on metaphysics, right?
No, it is.
I mean,
not. It is not grounded on metaphysics.
Physicalism is metaphysics. A metaphysical position.
Wait, time out. Time out, because that's a point I wanted to hit on, and I don't. Every time I hear Kastrup and the team talk about, material metaphysics, that just grinds like nails on a chalkboard to me. That doesn't make sense to me. The physical world is not metaphysical in my mind.
Right.
And maybe I'm missing something.
No, it is. I mean, I would,
tell me what my
Jeffrey, you don't
metaphysics
agree
are.
to that, right? Like,
Oh, I totally reject the idea that
physicalism is a
that
metaphysical position,
physicalism
right?
is grounded on metaphysics. Totally reject that.
But physicalism
Yeah, it
is a
seems like-
metaphysical position.
No, it is
that seems
not.
like nonsense to me.
Then metaphysics would be physics, but they're not. They're totally
No,
different.
no. See, physics is
Metaphysics is what stands behind physics. It is
exactly.
immaterial, but there's no reason to believe it exists.
No. I don't know. Like, metaphysics is the study of the first principles, right? The being, what reality is, nature.
That is a very recent dodge from the transcendental nature of metaphysics, because analytic philosophers get embarrassed by that. But no, that's not what metaphysics is. Otherwise, physics would be metaphysics, and it's not. Looking for first principles that stand behind physics is metaphysics, and by definition, ungrounded. There's no reason to take it seriously. As we said before, metaphysically, I can shapeshift to anything I want, but it doesn't explain anything.
See, physical is a metaphysical position, right? I don't know. Like, academically, physicalism is a metaphysical position, right? Idealism, physicalism, panphysics.
No. It does not have to be at all.
That is very strange to me, because isn't that the whole point of physical?
It's a common among analytic philosophers. That is a common either misunderstanding or distortion. But no, it is.
I read
not.
this from Stanford, Plato.
I'm sorry.
I mean, like, all the academic papers refers to physicalism as metaphysical position.
Only in analytic philosophy, not in continental philosophy. And even if that were the case, then let's think it through and see if it's true. Just because academics say so. I mean, if you look at the history of philosophy, 99% of academics had nothing of value to say. So I'm not particularly concerned. I mean, yeah, I'm just a simple semi-literate biker, but I'm not particularly concerned about what academics have to say. I'm very concerned with first-rate seminal thinkers have to say, very concerned with that. And I'm very concerned with actually ourselves delving into the issues. But, the fallacy of appeal to authority, it doesn't sway me in any way. How is my position metaphysical?
Because, you're taking a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, but
What?
grounded assumptions or ungrounded assumptions?
You're taking ungrounded assumptions.
Okay, that's not metaphysical.
You are taking ungrounded assumptions.
Okay, like what?
Because, first of all, what you have basically is conscious experiences, right?
I don't understand.
Yeah.
That. I don't make definitive declarations about them, but yes.
No, you have subjective experiences, and from that you're assuming that they are real. Like what?
I'm doing more than assuming that.
You see, what I'm telling is, essentially, you are assuming a world outside your mind.
Of course, I'm assuming outside my mind. I told you why.
Yeah.
Well, I got another question here. The fundamental nature of reality is one. There can't be two things outside of space time because they have more than one thing. You need space time. There is no thing outside of space. There are no things. Even in quantum fields, there are no things. That's what the Leggett inequalities proved. There are no things fundamentally, and there are no things on the other side of the line of decoherence.
No, Jeffrey, like
I was just answering that question.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So you are taking an assumption that there is a mind-independent world outside there, right?
It's not an assumption.
It is an assumption.
No, it's not an assumption. It's a physical experience, and it's justified in that I take things in I could not myself have invented.
That is still not a convincing argument. unless you assume, because see, why would you say that? See, why would you even say that you can not generate new information? That is by assuming that you cannot generate
new information. I did not say that.
Hmm.
I can generate new information. Absolutely. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I can take in information that I was not capable of generating. It came from the outside.
Yeah, well, that is because, I mean, like, you're taking the assumption that you are incapable of generating this information.
Right.
I could argue otherwise, right?
Like I said, I challenge you to write a Shakespearean sonnet.
See, this is just like,
but they exist, and I can show you them. But and you will.
Okay, I'm gonna go the other way. You can't
generate it yourself.
Okay, yeah, you can't say this is not a dream. You can never say that.
Why not?
Because you just told me that you can't.
No. I can tell. I have been consistent in saying I can tell the difference between reality and a dream. I've been consistent.
But you can't.
I can't tell you that what I represent as reality is really the way reality is.
That is fine. Are you saying that you cannot wake up from Jeffrey to some other person? You're saying there's no chance for that?
Yes, I'm saying there's no chance of that.
That is not true. How can you be sure? You can't be sure.
Show me how it could be true.
I would say agnostic. I'm also saying that I won't wake up to someone, but I wouldn't know unless I assume to.
Well,
it's an assumption that we're making.
No, it's not.
See, this is what I'm telling. We are making an assumption. It is an assumption.
No. Yes, okay, but it's a grounded assumption.
Yeah,
it is a justified assumption.
I'm gonna assume that a monkey's not gonna fly out my butt, and that's a grounded assumption. It's not gonna happen. You can tell me, Akshay, oh, but a monkey
that comes
could
from
fly
the principle
out
of,
but no, it's not gonna happen.
That is a justified assumption. I agree, but that is an assumption, right?
Let's not use justified. Let's use grounded. Justified is one of those analytic terms that end up being meaningless. Grounded means it is experienced in our experience of physicality, which is all that we can experience. It's all that we can experience. That's grounded. And my assumptions come from those physical experiences. That's a grounded. It doesn't necessarily. It won't guarantee I'm right 100% of the time, but it's grounded. I at least have something I can point to. Metaphysics is ungrounded. It's purely imagination. It's leaps. It's flights of fancy, and I have
the assumption
to take it serious.
You're making. See, okay, then I don't think there's.
It's a grounded assumption. I've got all kinds of assumptions, but they're grounded.
Well, isn't Jeffrey's point just? I mean, seems rock solid.
It seems rock solid. Doesn't imply it rock solid.
Wait. Can I finish a sentence? Even if the statement he's making is if metaphysics was real, metaphysics would be physics. It's not. Metaphysics is, like you said, stands behind physics. It's all based on presumption. It's all saying, well, could be. Well, okay, fine, maybe could be. But physics is based in something that's grounded. We can measure it. We can tell that this has substance. And so when you talk about material metaphysics, you're just distorting what metaphysics means.
No, that is wrong. That is wrong.
To drag materials down to your level.
You're not
that is wrong.
It's a material metaphysics. You're not saying that. You're saying metaphysics is immaterial, outside of the physical world.
Isn't that
what you're saying?
Akshay, I think he's asking you, Akshay.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
No, see, what I'm saying is you can't even say that. Even space-time, substantialism or relationism goes to metaphysics, right?
Wait.
What is metaphysics?
Space-time isn't fundamental. Space-time.
No. Yeah, what I'm telling, such questions are answered in metaphysics.
Yeah, but
so metaphysics. Physics is the study of.
They're not valid answers.
No, they're not made up. Every word. No, that is the only way.
You have to show my metaphysics. What is my metaphysics?
You're a
I have
physicalist, right?
assumptions, sure.
You've
but they're
assumed there's
grounded-
a physical world outside. You have taken a lot of assumptions, like quantum superpositions and this.
but they're grounded in observation.
The-
They're
No,
observation.
and what? Yeah, that's what I'm coming to. They are grounded in observations
Right.
inside your consciousness field, and then you take assumptions
No. They
in your
arrive
field of
out-
experiences. I meant your subjective experiences. I mean, that's all we have access to, right? The
No.
noumenon is noumenon.
Oh, but yeah, we don't have access to the noumenon. That's
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah,
Which-
that's
which,
what I'm
by
saying.
the way, is what metaphysics typically tries to explain. It can't.
Exactly.
And that's why one of the reasons I reject metaphysics in general and Kastrup in particular is he's trying to project onto this noumena that we cannot know a positive attribute. And that positive attribute is nothing more than a projection of one of our conditions of thought.
See, you already, I don't know, you're missing the point, but you already took the noumenon to be physical.
I don't say anything about the noumena. I say nothing about it.
But you essentially say
I'm saying
it is a physical
remember
world,
what I
right?
said, at the lowest level we can experience, it's energy. And we can't go beyond that. If we go beyond that, we're entering into empty metaphysical speculation. I have nothing to say about the coherent quantum world. I have nothing to say about it.
See,
Just-
yeah, but
just
you
like the
did make a lot of
Copenhagen
assumptions.
interpretation.
See,
No,
you are
I
having
only make
subject.
assumptions from our side of decoherence.
That is not grounded. See, when you say that
sure it's
superposition, I'm gonna say why it is not grounded. When you made superpositions exist, accept it. I have no problem with that. But then you say some superpositions slide into us. You don't define us. You just say it's a mystery. It's not known.
No, I
that-
said it's a mystery how it happens. It's got nothing to
No,
do with us.
it is not. It has two mysteries: how it happens and what is the entity that these things are sliding into. You don't know. You just made that assumption, and that's how it is becoming physicalism.
No, I am describing solely from our side of the wave collapse. I'm saying I'm only talking from our
But
side
what
of
are
the wave
we?
collapse.
What are we? That is the question, right? What is the observer? And you're saying the observer is the superposition. That would essentially mean.
I'm not saying the observer it's the superposition. I said no such thing.
You did say it's somewhere. Okay,
No.
so what? Okay, enlighten me. How are we related to the superposition? What are we when it is coming to the superposition?
Our consciousness is an extreme radical reduction of what exists in superposition, the blurring that Rovelli talks about. We cannot we can observe effects of superposition on our side and know that it happens, but we cannot actually observe superposition, although we can manipulate it, and we do that in quantum computers. We manipulate that superposition. We manipulate quantum physics all the time, but we haven't a clue how it works or why.
Okay, I can grant all of that, but even so, you would take evolution, right?
What? I'm sorry.
Evolution, like
Evolution?
abiogenesis and evolution. Yeah, evolution of life.
I believe that it's a correct but very reductive explanation of things. But I certainly don't. I don't argue against evolution. It's a useful reductive explanation.
Fine. So what I was implying is, from that you would say that consciousness is in life, right? Like only in living systems you can find consciousness.
Yeah, but that's only. I'm saying that out of the grounded experience that we can only find it in living things, and even Kastrup acknowledged that and then got himself back.
Let's leave Kastrup. Like, is this what you're saying? Am I correct?
I'm saying that we only know of consciousness in living organisms. We know.
Okay, so it can emerge elsewhere. Fine, that's cool.
Okay.
But okay, wait, Mari, 1 sec.
Please.
So what I'm asking is, when you say that these reduced observations slide into us, it is permissible to slide into us. how did the first consciousness emerge from this pool of superposition?
I don't have the slightest idea.
That's the problem, right? Let's make
Well,
it all
no.
consistent.
Here's the difference between my position and metaphysics. I don't know. I don't know that I can know, and I'm not going to make up any metaphysical stories to try to explain it.
And that is true. That is completely true. See, I mean, I'm not going to say idealism is true, or Vedanta is true, or physicalism is true, because none of it is verifiable. But rather, we can just say which story is more likely to be true by using Occam's razor.
No. In a world that is fundamentally chaotic and irrational, why would parsimoniousness or parsimony, why would that be a criterion of truth? In the late 19th century...
It won't be, I agree. It
okay.
necessarily won't lead to truth. That's true. If your position is agnostic, I'm not.
I really don't care. It doesn't mean that.
If your position is agnostic, I have no argument. Like that is the best position we can take. That is true.
Where does consciousness originally come from? I'm agnostic on that. I don't know the answer. I can't even tell you what consciousness is. Nobody can. And I'm not going to make metaphysical speculations about that. I'm going to stay with what is grounded and what the, just with what is grounded. There's so much to think about there that really impacts how we should approach life, how we should see the world. I'm busy with that.
The utilitarian perspective, right?
No. I don't mean it. I don't mean it that way. I don't mean that what works is true. I went to the University of Chicago. The department was half analytic, half pragmatic. Boy, did I fit in well. But no, I'm definitely not a pragmatist. Absolutely not. But what I am saying is in thinking of the bigger questions, not pragmatic questions, but the real questions about who we are, what this universe is, and what our place is in it. That's the question of philosophy. There's so much to be gained just by sticking with what grounded knowledge, and there's so much confusion that arises out of metaphysics. I mean, that's what the late Wittgenstein was all about. Getting the flies out of the bottles, all of the needless, meaningless questions and knots that arise from the ungrounded musings of metaphysics. It got so bad that Wittgenstein said, now the only enterprise of philosophy is untying those knots or getting the flies out of the bottle. I don't want to spend my time doing that. I ignore the knots. I ignore metaphysics. But there's so much to be gained by ignoring metaphysics and grounding our thought in what is revealed in experience, what's revealed in being. That's where the answers that we can have, that's where they come from.
Okay, I think I get your point. If you're summing it up, metaphysics, you can tell any story, and parsimony doesn't matter because it's not going anywhere.
Right.
But I do agree that being agnostic is the best position you can take, because nobody's going to know the truth. It's going to be known now. It's going to be known forever, right?
Oh, ultimately, for fundamental reality, absolutely. Which is why, that is the fundamental reason I reject metaphysics. It's the fundamental reason I reject Kastrup or in his idealism. It's just simply making ungrounded fantasies about noumena that we can know nothing about.
All right, can I just present a question to both of you?
Marty.
Okay, yeah, I'll shut the hell up. No, but no, we're going round and round about this concept of consciousness, and I think Nagel kind of hit on it. It has to be something there is to be like it. When there's something to be like what you are, that's consciousness. And it seems to me metaphysics was born out of our consciousness getting too big. The hard problem that Chalmers presents, to me, seems kind of like smoke and mirrors. It's not It's not hard. You know, you got these little one-celled organisms that move towards food or move towards light. And then if you just layer on enough cortex, and, you know, suddenly now they can hunt and they can do other things. And eventually now they're spouting metaphysics.
Marty, if I could interject just for a second, Rovelli made pretty much that same point in the video that I was talking about. There is no hard problem. That's one of those faux problems that arise from the fallacies of metaphysics. The hard problem doesn't really exist. It's hard to understand. I mean, we got a lot of hard work to do and we're never going to understand it down to the elemental level, you know, of what happens pre-wave collapse. That's impossible. But we can learn a lot more about it without inventing things like the hard problem.
But Jeffrey, it brings me back to my initial argument. Like, quantum physics is, I mean, it could be just anthropomorphic. Why would you say that is where consciousness is coming from?
I don't. No, please. Let me explain it again, because that isn't really what I said. What I said is that quantum physics is the most fundamental thing that we have from a reductive, scientific, representational mode of thought. Remember earlier I said we have another mode of thought, and we haven't gotten into that at all, and that's probably another discussion for another day, but that's aesthetic thought. But from a reductive scientific point of view, quantum field physics is the most elemental thing we know. And we can talk from that, because we can't go below that. That's metaphysics, and that's making stuff up. But we can start at that level, which is our side of decoherence. So we can speak from that. It's grounded. And we can see that most of the energy in the universe, almost all the energy in the universe, shows no evidence of consciousness in any way at all. And we can show that very, rare, a few on Earth self-organizations of consciousness self-organizations of energy do show evidence of consciousness. We are some of that. That there's no possible way no grounded way to get from those rare events of consciousness to cosmic consciousness. You can't get there. It's just simply an ungrounded, fanciful leap. We only can see it in living organisms, and we only know of living organisms on this planet, and that's all we can talk from. We everything else is just make-believe.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
since we see that, since we don't see consciousness in non-living things, what rational reason do we have to project it into
especially into a noumena that we both agree we can't say anything positive about?
Okay, so I think I'm getting your view partially. I mean, I don't agree to it, but I think this is what you're telling. Like, the phenomenon is phenomenon. Nobody's going to know anything about it. And
Right.
What we know, essentially, what we have known anthropomorphically, what we know is quantum physics. And quantum physics, when it goes all the way down, it's all about superpositions. So,
but we don't even understand the superpositions. We can't even. I mean, that's where we crash.
We are on the other side of decoherence. Like, we are on the side of.
I mean, we know superposition, or something like what we represent as superposition takes place. We use it in electronics all the time, and that's what it's that and entanglement are exploited in quantum computers. But we had this. We're seeing it from our side of the divide, and that divide is impermeable, and we still think of it as spatial temporal. It's this stuff, and it's existing at the same time, kind of flattened out, because we can't imagine what it is.
Well, don't we have to get rid of time to comprehend it? And
absolutely.
If our brains don't allow us to do that,
it's a condition of thought.
Yeah, we can only talk about it.
But Mari, I mean, Jeffrey, are you like, since you were rejecting out all metaphysics? I mean, I think if so, I see some sense here. So you're just gonna say that the brain is having correlation with consciousness and it is not causing consciousness, right?
I'm not even going to talk about causality. I don't know. We don't understand that. I'm not going to.
We don't understand that. Yeah, fine. So we're gonna be agnostic there also.
Yeah, we don't understand consciousness. We may someday, but that doesn't entitle us to make up stories about it.
But we have no conscious correlates
You're saying,
outside of
okay.
a brain. If we don't have a brain, we have nothing.
Yeah, there's no question.
No, you can't say that, Mari, because when you say that, you've already assumed that brain is causing consciousness, which you don't know.
No. I'm not saying that, but we do know that it's dependent on the brain. When the brain dies, so does consciousness. If you give the brain a powerful anesthetic, you lose consciousness. There is certainly they're in some way the same thing. In some way, they are the same thing. But Kastrup is right in that the brain is our physical material representation of something. But what that is still physical. It's that interplay of
See, aren't you taking metaphysical assumption there when you say that statement?
No, because we that all comes from observations within
physical in your observation. That is what you should say, right? Like,
that's
my brain.
No, you can't talk any further than that. That's
so you're not referring the nomenon to physical as well. The nomenon is nomenon.
I am saying absolutely nothing about the noumena. Nothing. I have nothing to say about it. Other than anything I do say about it is almost certain to be wrong, because it doesn't exist the way in accordance with our conditions of thought. So anything we say about it is almost certain to be wrong, because we can't think other than
I don't think you're a physicalist as well. Like, you're agnostic about metaphysics. Like, it can never be known, so it need not be known. That's your position, right?
Yeah, which leaves me with the physical, and it's all I can know.
No, which leaves you with your experiences, and that's all you can know, and you can call it physical. I mean, that is what we call physical ultimately.
I call energy physical, and that's as much as.
And energy is in your perception, right?
No, energy is measured. I mean, no. This gets back to all we know is consciousness, which was wrong.
No, I'm gonna give you another argument. Yeah, I'll take it. You can measure energy, yeah, inside your subjective experience, yes. But what I'm gonna posit is that energy, as you know it, exists in your representation alone, right? It need not transcend to other representations.
I don't believe that. No, I think.
Why not?
Because we all share the same conditions of thought as human beings. Okay, I mean, yeah. I mean, if there were aliens from another galaxy, I'm not talking about them, and I'm not talking the way a horse might.
I'm talking about them. Anthropomorphically, it makes sense. Yeah, I have no disagreement with humans. I'm saying with another conscious being with a completely different set of senses.
I couldn't even.
Will have.
Be.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
exactly.
They can see the waves, and they see.
No, there wouldn't be waves for them. Waves are in our
waves. You're right.
Yeah,
there wouldn't
exactly.
Even be waves. Waves only exist in our timeline because they're spatial temporal, and we can't get around talking about that. We talk about quantum fields where there's no space. We talk about quantum waves where there's no time, because we have no other way to talk about it, because we can't imagine it. And anything we say beyond that threshold of wave collapse, anything that takes us into the noumena, we are almost certain to say to misrepresent, because it couldn't care less about our conditions of thought. That's not how it exists.
Jeffrey, I mean, I get a lot of your points, but if you're agreeing to this hypothetical aliens as well,
yes,
I don't think you don't even have to make an argument saying that consciousness could be in superposition, because ultimately we don't know.
Other than we don't know. I say nothing about noumena, but I will say this: in the world we do know, consciousness is extremely rare and only comes about in certain very complicated arrangements of self-organizations of energy. It's the only time we have ever experienced.
Why would you say self-organization of energy?
Because that's how we measure it. That's the lowest we can get to.
No, but the superposition, are you talking
superposition?
Okay, you're talking about after decoherence. Energy is what we can measure.
That's all I can talk about. That's all I can talk about is after decoherence.
Okay, see,
anything else is just empty metaphysics.
I agree with you.
And let me
here.
add that much of what we see in contemporary physics descends into that empty metaphysics. Things like many worlds theory. That's just empty metaphysics. So much of it is.
Yeah, let's leave all metaphysics outside. Let's just talk about this. I am seeing a contradiction here. I agree with all of what you said, because that is essentially true, because nobody is knowing the truth and we're just making up stories, and we just bring up Occam's razor to claim that one story is better than the other, when we surely know that we cannot say so.
Right.
I agree.
We agree on that.
Yeah, I like to fight like that because that is fun, but you're saying that is not the game we should play. But so I agree. In this version, right? I see some inconsistencies here. If you say that, again, I'm not understanding. Energy is fundamental. Agreed. So consciousness is very rare. As far as we know, it is. Yeah, and consciousness is very rare, and those 2 points I get. And what's the next point? How do you connect them? What's your next postulate?
One of the few things Kastrup has said that is correct. Without ATP, there is no consciousness. Which is,
but he's coming from a completely different side.
I understand, but he's getting to something that's true. Without energy, we have never seen consciousness that wasn't an organization of energy. We've never seen it. I have no reason to believe such a thing exists.
Okay, that is fine, but why are you rounding it to energy?
Because that is what the lowest thing that we can see.
That's
okay, so yeah, here is the problem that I'm having. I'm gonna say, if this goes to weak emergence, but you're setting an extra threshold, which is the assumption you're making, which you shouldn't.
Which what?
Energy is the lowest form we can measure. Okay, agreed on that. And energy arranged in this specific in manner, is giving rise to consciousness. It is consciousness.
It is consciousness. It is consciousness. It is consciousness.
Can you hear me?
I can, but you're kind of breaking up and your picture has frozen.
Yeah, one second. അമ്മ അച്ഛണ്ടാക്കാതെ എന്നോട് ഇന്റർനെറ്റ് തീർന്നു വെച്ചു എങ്കിരുന്ന് പേശിട്ട്.
One thing I should also add is we've been doing this almost 2 hours. I'm recovering from COVID and I am exhausted. But if you would, are you still there, Akshay? I think he's gone anyway.
Yeah, I think
I would love to pick this up when I'm fresh again. I think I have immensely enjoyed this conversation. He's not the typical Kastrup cultist by any means. He's a solid thinker. Akshay, what I was suggesting. Yeah, can you hear me? Akshay,
hello.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we hear you, Akshay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear. Yes.
Can you hear us?
Jeffrey, can you hear me?
I can. Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh shit! I can't get the audio. One second.
Yeah. What I would suggest is I would love to pick this up with him again.
You're willing to go at it again?
Oh yeah, no. This is what conversations should be.
I enjoyed it, and you're right. He's not he didn't come on like he was typical. He just said,
No, he's coming from a much more authentic,
Nuanced,
valid
yeah.
background than Kastrup's metaphysical idealism. And it's worth discussing, and I've enjoyed it. Like I said, you know, I'm much better than I was a couple weeks ago when we did this, but I tire easily, and you can probably see my eyes drooping.
Well, no, I appreciate your hanging in
But
there.
I'd love to do it again, Marty, if you're up
Let's
to
see
it.
if
Hi.
Hey, can you
Hi.
hear us now, Akshay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, go ahead, Jeffrey, please.
Yeah, what I was saying, we've been doing this for a couple hours. What you didn't know, but he knew from a couple weeks ago, is I'm recovering from COVID, and I'm exhausted. You can probably see my eyes drooping. But I want to say I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. You're not one of the Kastrup cultists. You're coming from a much more substantial and valid point of view than Kastrup's metaphysical idealism, which has made this conversation really interesting. And should you want to, I would love to pick it up again at another time.
Are you game
Likewise.
for another go with this? You're game for another go, Akshay?
I have no problem with this. Like, see, as I told, I am in full agreement that we cannot know the truth, and this whatever we are doing is just an exercise of discussing ideas. And I'm not here to defend something, because even I don't know if it is true. I'm just holding on to that because I think it's better than physical stuff. I still hold on to that because I have counters for this energy theory, because I think it breaks down to panpsychism. But likewise, we were just having fun. It was nice. I like to talk about such stuff.
And I could tell at the very beginning that you and I were going to agree on more than we disagree. And the disagreement was going to center on going from what we agree on to making a metaphysical leap.
Yeah, well, that was the most entertaining part for me, is that you agreed so much, yet it was still so contentious. That makes good conversation.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, Jeffrey, I'll put the link to the conversation with Rovelli and the lady's name, I forget.
Patricia.
Churchland.
Churchland. Yeah, I'll find that link and I'll stick it in the description, and I'll communicate with both of you, and hopefully we can go at this again.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me back, Marty. I really appreciate it. Akshay, I have greatly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Jeffrey.
Thank you both so much for your time. Namaste.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.